Super cashback. Միայն տուն էքսպոյի օրերին։ Գյուրջյան Կասկադ։
Ladies and gentlemen, Your Eminence, Archbishop, members of the clergy, members of Parliament, esteemed colleagues. It is an honor for me to speak to you today as a former member of the European Parliament from Germany. But it is also a heavy responsibility, for the issue that brings us together here concerns not just one people, not just one region. It concerns the credibility of our international order. I am talking about the Armenians of Artsakh, about their fate, about their rights, about their future. The events in Artsakh, the exodus of the people in recent years, are tragic and dramatic. Tens of thousands of people have been displaced. Families who had lived in their village for centuries were forced to leave their homes. Where once there was life, there is now uncertainty, loss of dignity, and emptiness. It is a test for a world in chaos, a test of whether we, as an international community, take seriously the principles we have enshrined in the United Nations Charter, the Geneva Conventions, and the Human Rights Covenants. Article 1 of the United Nations Charter obliges us to protect human rights for all. This obligation does not only apply in times of peace, it applies especially in times of crisis. Currently, we are witnessing multifold global crises: Ukraine, Gaza, Taiwan, etc. Let me highlight a few challenges, ladies and gentlemen. First challenge, human rights. Article 3 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights guarantees the right of life, liberty, and security. Article 27 of the Civil Covenant expressly protects the right of minorities to preserve their culture, their language, and religion. But in Artsakh, it is precisely these rights that have been grossly violated. People have been displaced, killed, and taken as political hostage or POW. Among the many of them, I might mention two former presidents who I had the honor to meet in Artsakh in 2017, Bako Sakian and Araik Harutunyan. Second challenge, international humanitarian law. The Fourth Geneva Convention, Article 49, unequivocally prohibits the forcible expulsion of civilians. And yet, 120,000 plus of people, thousands of Armenians had to leave their homes in a matter of days. Third challenge, cultural heritage. Artsakh is full of Armenian civilization. Churches, monasteries, cemeteries, khachkars, sites that are valuable not only to Armenians, but to all of humanity. The 1972 UNESCO Convention obliges us to protect such heritage. If it is destroyed or falsified, we lose not only Armenian heritage, we lose global heritage. We lose a piece of our shared history. Fourth challenge, political instrumentalization. All too often, humanitarian issues are overshadowed by geopolitical interests and sometimes by the specific personalities of worldwide political decision makers. But human rights are universal, they are non-negotiable. Let me highlight the opportunities and areas of potential action. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the dramatic nature of the situations, there might be ways to take action. Firstly, jurisdiction. The International Court of Justice and the European Court of Human Rights offer opportunities to assert rights determine responsibility and demand protection. Secondly, monitoring. Independent missions by the United Nations, OSCE or Council of Europe can establish facts that expose propaganda and distortion. Thirdly, protection of cultural heritage. UNESCO can place Armenian sites in Artsakh on the list of endangered World Heritage Sites. This would send a clear signal. This heritage does not belong to one side, but to all of us. And let me recall a short anecdote, ladies and gentlemen. In 2021, I sent a letter to the then acting Director General of UNESCO, Mrs. Azoulay, highlighting the actions by Azerbaijan that were destroying cultural heritage in Artsakh. Unfortunately, I never received a response by Mrs. Azoulay, which I find really bad, but this probably has to do with conflicting interests at the helm of UNESCO with other countries. Fourthly, humanitarian aid and return. Aid must flow freely, and the displaced must have the opportunity to return. And fifth and last, international responsibility. The 2005 United Nations World Summit Declaration enshrined the responsibility to protect. This responsibility obliges us to prevent ethnic cleansing and crimes against humanity. It also obliges the international community in Artsakh. Let me highlight the role of civil society. States alone will not solve this problem. The Armenian diaspora is strong and keep the issue on the international agenda. It has influential members and supporters worldwide and is globally networked. Together with NGOs and international human rights organizations, it can ensure that the issue is not forgotten. But civil society worldwide also bears responsibility. After all, the protection of minorities and cultures is not a national concern, it is a universal task. Conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to conclude with three questions. Firstly, are we prepared to defend the right of life and security as guaranteed by Article 3 of the Universal Declaration for the Armenians of Artsakh as well? Secondly, are we prepared not only to recognize the right to culture and identity as enshrined in Article 27 of the Civil Covenant, but also protect it? And third and last question, are we prepared to enforce the prohibition of expulsion from Article 49 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, even if this is politically inconvenient? If we do not answer these questions with a clear yes, our standards lose their credibility. However, if we reform or if we reinforce them with action, we can send a message of hope that justice comes before power, before might makes right, before the law of the jungle. That dignity takes precedence over interests, that humanity is universal. The Armenians of Artsakh must not be forgotten. Their fate is a touchstone for our collective credibility. Let us act resolutely, impartially, in the spirit of humanity. Glorakalution. Thank you.